Okay. First, I want to start off by explaining why I'm so passionate about real estate and how my journey started. So, my husband and I, we purchased our first home when we were 21, and it was literally like the smartest decision we could have made. So, if you can invest in real estate as young as possible, I highly recommend it. We bought our first home and we didn't really even know anything about real estate. My parents bought our home we grew up in, owner finance. So, they didn't know anything about getting a home loan. And also, my dad would always say that credit was bad, that he didn't like that we would just get in debt if we would get credit because he didn't understand it. He didn't know how it worked. So, whenever we decided to do the jump, we didn't even tell anybody, like none of our parents, because we kind of wanted to see if it was, going to go through. So, the way that it started was whenever we met in high school, our senior year, and my mom moved to Waco my senior year. So, whenever I graduated, I knew I was going to move over there. And so, once I moved to Waco, one time I was visiting during the summer, and my uncle, he called me. He's like, "Hey, I have a job opportunity for you." And I was like, "I don't even live here in Houston. Like, what do you mean?" And so he pretty much just told me that they were going to pay me a good hourly commission and I was going to get like a discounted rental apartment. So for me, I was like, okay, it's a good opportunity. Like, let me try it. I can just go to school here. So I decided to move over here. Fast forward to once I had got my apartment, my husband and boyfriend at the time, he moved in with me a couple months after that. So when we moved in, I don't even remember how that conversation started, where we said like, hey, why don't we look into buying a home? But we had that conversation and we knew that we could combine our income so we could afford it. And we looked into getting the home loan. And like any person, your first home, you're like thinking, what do you want? And it's everything cosmetic, right? You want the white kitchen, you want a lot of countertops, like just the big grand kitchen with a big yard, and all the things that are not always important on your first home. So the home and the time it was, we purchased in 2016. So at that time, the home that I love, they were in the 150 price range, and at that time that was just expensive. So when we received our pre-approval was actually of 145,000. So we realized that we had to, kind of change some things up and be like, okay, what can we can afford at this price range. And we only went to show one day. We saw three homes, and from the three homes, we knew which one we wanted. We submitted an offer, and that home actually cost 134,000 at that time. And I say it was the smartest decision because the only thing we knew about real estate was that we knew that the homes gain equity over time without even doing anything. So we always knew it was like gonna be our starter home to get into our dream home later, and we were gonna use the equity we gained to pretty much buy our second home. So um, we pretty much we see that the numbers made sense to us, right? So we're like, let's go through with it. We didn't give it second thought, and we submitted an offer. We closed on this home, and my plans were always, and we talked about it. My plans was always to keep that home for 10 years, and then after the 10 years, sell it and get something else. And it's funny how things work out because timing always works perfectly. And I feel like a lot of the decisions that we made, they weren't knowledgeable, but it was just like, if the numbers make sense, like, let's do it. So one day I was randomly just searching on Zillow. I was already a realtor at this time, but I was pretty new, so I didn't really know, as much as I know now. And whenever I was like searching on Zillow, and I came across this property, and it said 1 acre, and the house was 330, brand new. And I was like, that sounds cheap. But I mean, the price, that was 2020, so the price was high, right? 300s was, and it was crazy to us. But I was like, for an acre and a brand new house for 330, like that just sounds like affordable. So we weren't looking to buy a house, but my husband's like, hey, let's just for the heck of it, let's go look at it. And it was Father's Day, so I remember so clearly. I was like, okay, let's go. And we went to look at it, and we're like, oh my God, the house is so beautiful. Like at that time, we were like, can you believe we can own something like this one day? And it was my husband's idea because he's the one that always like has the crazy ideas. He was like, why don't we see if we can qualify for the loan? We sell our house and we buy this one. So I was like, really? Like it just seems so unbelievable. Like because we went from $134,000 home to now wanting to buy a 300 something home. And the like our childhood, the way we grew up, we didn't grow up with like a family with a lot of money. So the 300 just seemed crazy. And we looked at the numbers, it made sense. And the way that we pretty much bought our second home was because our first home had gained, a good amount of equity where we could pay off debt and we could afford a higher mortgage. So that's why I say, like, we bought our first home knowing nothing, and by whenever we bought our second home, we already had, more knowledge. So it's just like, if you can get into real estate and buy something, like, always recommend it. If you're paying rent right now, then you can probably afford a mortgage. And even if you don't have the funds to cover all your down payment, because there's different programs for that, and I'll get up into that in another video, but there's also a lot of help with the closing costs and things like that. So that's why I'm very passionate about it, because I feel like if you play your cards right and you invest in real estate, there's going to be a bigger outcome, and you can always, get your dream home from your first home. So the only thing that I do feel like I wish I would have known better was our first home. I wish we would have actually retained it and rented it out because our mortgage was so cheap. So our mortgage at that time was only $1,200, and $1,200 was, I mean, that's cheap right now to even rent a house for that much. And it was a really nice house. So if we would have known better, we could have got a home equity loan. And since we needed the funds for that house, to buy our second home, we could have got a home equity loan and paid down debt and still had money for our down payment. So that's the only thing I wish I would have known better, because I would have had two homes, versus just having like the current home that we have now. But we still, bought at a perfect time, because whenever we sold our first home, we went under contract on our second home. It was right before COVID happened. And we were lucky because pretty much whenever we closed on our house, all the new construction homes were pretty much getting marked up $30,000 to $40,000 just because all the material was going up. So since we went under contract before all that happened, the builder honored, the price that we agreed on, and we were under contract. So as soon as we closed, we had instant equity. We could have probably sold that house and, bought, something else if we really wanted to. So that is why I'm just very passionate about investing in real estate, whether you have knowledge about it or not, because anybody can do it. Like, if we did it when we were 21 with not telling anybody and just, going for it because we knew we could afford the mortgage, I don't see why anybody, can't do it too. Okay, so as a parent, like me and my husband, we always have these conversations about how important it is to us to leave something for our kids. And if the only thing you can invest in your lifetime is in your primary home, even if you never sell and just retain this property, you can, leave this to your kids and give them like a head start that we didn't have. So that's one of the things, like, and I go back to why I'm so passionate about it, because to me it's really important to be able to leave something for my kids and get them one step closer, or give them opportunities that I didn't have. So for example, like, every time we pass by like these properties full of acreage, where I'm always so mind blown, right? And I always tell them, like, I wonder how they retain these properties. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of these properties have been passed down through generations. And that's just amazing, for us to be able to do that, especially like in the Hispanic community too, where we can buy our home and know we're going to leave this to our kids. So if you bought the house, by the time it gets passed down to them, hopefully it will be paid off by then. Or if not, had enough equity to pretty much get them into college, or just have them living in this home where it's like they don't have to worry about living expenses, or they can kind of use this as an investment for themselves. And of course, not give them hand downs, and to where they don't learn how to work for themselves, because that's one of the things I struggle with like, because I know I can give my kids more opportunities than I had. My parents, did the best. They're amazing. I love them so much. But because I know I can give them certain things that my parents couldn't give me, I struggle with, like, I don't want to give them everything to where they feel like they don't have to work hard for it, But I do want to know I'm leaving them, knowledge, and that I'm, pretty much teaching them things that I didn't know so they could know better, like credit, how to purchase a home, just a lot of things that kind of just set them up financially so they don't have to figure it out on their own. And then I know when they have kids, they're going to be, have the same situation where they're going to be more knowledgeable than me. So they're going to pass down the information, and then generations are just going to get smarter from there. So So for me, it's just, I obviously feel more comfortable investing in real estate now that I'm a realtor because I've learned so much more. But even before I wasn't a realtor, like, I mean, I was still willing to do the jump because I knew people made money from this. And that's how people build, generational wealth, by retaining real estate and then, holding it off until it's a good time to sell later in the future.